The royal barge of the Andromedan spiral imperium hung against the velvet black, a teardrop of opalescent alloy and soft, internal light. Within its foremost viewing chamber, the princess stood, her 6-fingered hands clasped before the silver-threaded folds of her gown. Her skin held the faint luminescence of a moonlit pearl, and the delicate cranial tendrils that denoted her royal lineage swayed with a subtle anxiety. The planet below was a dull, mottled sphere of blues and browns earth, a recent and baffling addition to the galactic community. "You are certain, Minister?" she asked, her voice a soft chime. The minister, an elder whose tendrils were frosted with age, bowed. "Quite certain, Highness." The delegation from Earth was insistent. They send a single representative for this cultural exchange. Their profile is atypical. A warrior? No, their designation is cultural archivist and xeno-relation specialist. They call it an anthropologist. The minister infused the alien word with a tone of mild distaste. Princess watched as a blunt, gray shuttle, devoid of elegance, detached from the orbital dock and lumbered toward her barge. It was an aesthetic offense. A scholar of primitive customs. How quaint. The meeting protocol was a carefully orchestrated ballet of imperial tradition. The princess would be enthroned on her dais, surrounded by her silent, armored vigil. The human would be admitted, would approach to the prescribed distance, and would offer the gesture of respect, a right hand placed over the thoracic cavity, where a lesser species might house its heart. It was a ritual performed 100 times with 100 different species. The great doors irised open. The human entered. The first impression was one of disarming simplicity. It was bipedal, bilaterally symmetrical, clothed in a dark, utilitarian single-piece garment. Its skin was a sun-touched beige, its head crowned with a short brown fur. It moved not with the calculated grace of the imperial court, but with a relaxed, efficient gait that seemed to acknowledge gravity as a companion, not a force to be perpetually overcome. It stopped at the exact prescribed distance. The princess prepared for the gesture. The human's eyes met hers. That was the second impression. The eyes were a startling, clear blue, the color of a high mountain sky. They held no fear, no obsequiousness. They held curiosity. A deep, patient, and utterly focused curiosity. They looked at her, not at the throne, not at the vigil, but at her. The princess felt a flutter in her primary pulse point, a sensation entirely novel. The human performed the gesture, its right hand pressing flat against its chest. "I am honored by your welcome, Your Highness." The translation matrix rendered its voice as a warm male baritone, devoid of the harmonic layers of imperial speech, but clear and firm. "You are welcome, emissary of Earth," the princess chimed, her scripted words feeling suddenly hollow. "We trust your journey was without incident." "It was educational," the human said. A small movement of its facial muscles occurred, a slight upward curve of its mouth. The database flagged it as a smile, a non-threatening social signal. "Your barge is a marvel of artistry. The way the hull diffracts light is beautiful." It was a compliment, not on power, but on beauty. The minister shifted, a subtle rustle of disapproval. One did not comment on a royal vessel like one might comment on a gemstone. "You are a student of culture," the princess stated, moving the dialogue forward. "I am. I learn how people live, what they value, the stories they tell." The human's gaze swept the chamber, taking in the murals depicting the spiral's conquest of the void. "Your murals tell a story of grand journey, of discovery, of conquest," the minister corrected softly. The human's blue eyes returned to the princess. "Is there a difference?" The question hung in the air. To ask such a thing bordered on philosophical insolence. Yet the princess found herself considering it. "One implies finding," she said, her script forgotten. "The other implies taking. And which do your stories celebrate? The human asked. The vigil's grip on their energy lances tightened. The minister emitted a faint, warning hum. The princess raised a single luminous hand, silencing them. She was captivated. No ambassador, no dignitary, no creature from 100 advanced worlds had ever asked her what her story celebrated. They asked about trade, about military alignments, about resource rights. We celebrate strength, the princess said. The strength to bring order. The human nodded, as if this was a valuable data point. A common theme. My people have similar stories. Though we also have many stories about the strength to resist order, to choose a different path. Chaos, the minister intoned. Choice, the human countered gently. The audience was scheduled for 13 minutes. It lasted for an hour and a half. The princess dismissed her vigil and minister, a shocking breach of protocol. She ordered refreshment ambrosial nectar in crystal flutes. The human accepted his, sipped, and coughed politely. Potent, he remarked, that smile appearing again. It has a kick. He spoke not of politics or technology, but of myths. He told her a story from his world, about a woman who sailed a silver seashell across an ocean to find a golden fleece, not for power, but for the sake of her family's honor. He told her another about a man who spent 20 years journeying home, his strength lying not in his sword, but in his enduring heart. In return, she found herself speaking not of statecraft, but of her own hidden passions. She spoke of her collection, of crystallized nebulae, of her secret attempts to compose harmonic poetry in the ancient, unused modes of her people, of her feeling of being a decorative piece in a vast, cold machine of empire. You are a prisoner of your story, the human said, his voice quiet, the strong, ordering princess. But I hear another story wanting to be told, the story of the curious princess, the artistic one. No one had ever seen that. Not her. Parents, not her ministers, not the suitors from a dozen allied star systems who saw only a political alliance wrapped in luminous skin. This strange, simple creature from a backwater world had seen it in an afternoon. The time came for his departure. A princess felt a desperate, unimperial clenching in her core. The gray shuttle awaited. The human stood and offered the gesture of respect once more. Thank you, Your Highness. You have given me a great gift. A new story to understand. He turned to leave. Wait. The word escaped her before she could cage it. He turned, his expression questioning. The princess of the Andromedan spiral. Imperium, descendant of star conquerors, heir to a throne of cold splendor, took a step off her dais. She crossed the forbidden space, the space reserved for inferiors, until she stood before him, closer than any non-familial being had ever stood. She looked up into those blue, understanding eyes. Your people, she began, her chime-like voice unsteady. They form alliances. They bond. They marry. The human nodded slowly. They do. Is such a union, she asked, the words rushing out now, possible between a human and an Andromedan? He blinked. The calm curiosity in his face deepened into something else, surprise, and a profound consideration. Biologically? Unknown. Culturally? It would be. Unprecedented, I am aware. She drew herself up, her luminous skin flickering with emotion. I have been offered an alliance 7 times. Each offer was a calculation of resource wealth, strategic positioning, and genetic compatibility. They saw a nexus of power, a symbol. She gestured toward him, a graceful sweep of her 6-fingered hand. You saw a person. You heard my story. You asked me what I celebrated. She took a final, decisive breath, the most undignified, irrational, glorious breath of her life. Therefore, I propose an alliance. I propose a union. I propose marriage, not for my empire's gain, but for my own. I wish my story to be joined with one who understands that stories are meant to be lived, not just told. The chamber was silent. The human did not speak for a long moment. He studied her face, seeing not the political tempest this would unleash, not the galactic scandal, but the genuine, fearless hope in her eyes. He did not laugh. He did not recoil. He did not summon diplomacy. He simply reached out, his hand open, palm up. A human gesture of offering, of connection. "My people have an old saying," he said, his voice soft as starlight. "The longest journey begins with a single step." The princess looked at his hand, then at his eyes. Slowly, with a courage that dwarfed any imperial conquest, she placed her 6-fingered hand in his. The touch was electric, alien, warm. "Then let us begin," she said. And somewhere, in a palace of crystal and light, a minister felt a deep existential dread. And somewhere, on a distant blue planet, a file would be updated with the most unexpected diplomatic report in history. But here, in this moment, there were only two beings, from different spirals of the galaxy, holding hands and writing a brand new story together.